What's going on, everybody? My name is Tate Canyon. Right next to me is Cairo. This is Round 2 Magazine, and today we're here with a special guest, Anthony Fantano.
The internet's busiest music nerd. I do a lot of reviews on YouTube. It's I don't even need to introduce myself. Everyone on the internet either is aware of me or hates me and wants me to die. Um,
You have a really big opinion. This year more than ever.
oh,
It
big
is.
sad opinion.
I'm sorry.
I said a big sad opinion.
Yeah, a whole lot of big opinions, a whole lot of big like news going on with the channel. But I guess to start off, like to get to like what all the big news is from this year, last year, years prior. How did you start the whole like music review thing? How did the YouTube channel start? What were the early interests that got you into it?
The Needle Drop kind of started as a music blog and as a podcast to start. I used to do a lot of college radio and had a music show, and I was working at an NPR station after I got out of college, where I studied journalism and broadcast communications, and just thought I was going to work in radio. That was basically my plan, or sort of do reporting and that sort of thing. And I missed doing a music show, and I pitched a music show to the, you know, director of the radio station, and he liked it. And I didn't get paid for it or nothing off the bat, but it's something that they let me do, they allowed me to do, and I enjoyed doing it. And that sort of like gave me the ability to kind of like get my foot in the door with like some other places where I could sort of write about music on, a week to week basis. Like, oh, I have an NPR affiliated like podcast, and I talk about music over there. So can I write for your column? Can I write for your paper? Da 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 da. Sort of like got the ball rolling. And while all of that was well and good, and it was definitely a decent place to start and kind of like get my bearings for what I'm trying to do, it wasn't going anywhere career-wise, which is why I kind of like started the YouTube channel as kind of like an experiment. I thought like, well, if this isn't kind of going anywhere with me talking about music sort of in text or over a podcast, like what if I took it to YouTube? Because there were a lot of YouTubers that I was watching at the time who like just kind of talked about their passions or covered certain things, or kind of like just threw their opinions out there on whatever topics they followed closely. But there wasn't really anybody who I knew of or watched on a regular basis when I started my channel who talked about music all the time. Maybe every once in a while here and there, just to sort of like, if their favorite band is of a certain genre and they're just really into that style. But for the most part, like I didn't really see anybody on YouTube as like a dedicated music reviewer, and I wondered sort of like how far could you take that sort of thing if you tried it. And that was in 2009.
And that was way before a lot of the whole like YouTube push, even probably before like early formats like Kids React on the Fine Brothers channel back in the day, which was like one of the main forms of like reaction on YouTube.
Yeah,
So like
I mean,
early on,
I remember like one of the only big YouTubers that I remember from back then that, and I'm sure there are others, but like I remember one of the only big YouTubers that I remember doing their thing at that time, and it's still like pretty big and relevant today, was like Sexy Phil. The like that, of course there were other huge YouTubers who were either his size or bigger at the time, but a lot of them have kind of like come and gone. It's like he's one of the only one of the only people and faces that I can remember back then that are still doing their thing in a pretty big way on YouTube, and in a way that's super consistent, and for the most part is like kind of unchanged from how he used to do it. He still is kind of doing the same show and sticking to his usual format, and in much the same way kind of like I have my format, and I've been able to kind of make it continue working throughout the years.
no, that's super true. And moving on, the kind of as time goes on, the YouTube channel started taking different forms. There were live streams, there were like live reactions on like listening to like younger indie artists on stream. Here's a question kind of from Cairo, kind of coming from like the artist standpoint on like kind of growing on that point on like the reaction point.
I mean, what was it like seeing different people like you, Sean C, even like I guess Dante, I guess kind of transform that space and kind of create the breaking of the fourth wall in a sense where, you know, some of the fans of you guys is started becoming the people you were reacting to and like interviewing and things of that nature. What was that like seeing that whole space on YouTube?
I think it kind of speaks to how what we've done has sort of like kind of slowly replaced the platforms where artists would normally be trying to do those sorts of interactions with their audiences and stuff. Usually like back in the day, they'd be trying to like lobby for that Rolling Stone interview or that Pitchfork interview or whatever, and now these days it's like, all these different podcasts and influencers and streamers who have, sort of like become the platform for those sorts of interactions. And, it's just been cool that it's changed, that it's shifted, I mean, obviously like every change in that way has its upsides and its downsides and like its growing pains and everything. But, it's definitely a sign of like, it's a new paradigm for sure when it comes to like music culture and music journalism.
And I guess as a follow-up for someone as an independent artist myself upcoming, like what is the steps that people take to get to yourself or other people like that? How do they get the music in your hands? How do you start to review those kinds of things?
People pass me music all the time that I end up trying or reviewing or sort of talking about in some capacity, be it through like my Twitch chat or social media or even like just sending an email through my website. I mean, unfortunately, like just being one guy and, having a team of people that also go over some of this stuff with me here and there, it's like we can't catch everything, and I'm also not going to like everything, you know what I mean? It's hard to because I'm in the position I'm in and I have the platform that I have to kind of like pick my battles. And sometimes like, well, I mean, in most cases it doesn't necessarily make sense to sort of like talk about a project from a smaller artist if I think it's horrible. It's like I don't want somebody's first review off the bat where nobody knows who they are, where I'm just like shitting on their stuff. You know what I mean? That doesn't really like benefit anybody per se, even if there are some people that like will DM me and be like, come on man, I promise I don't even care if you hate my music and think it's the worst thing ever, please review it. And it's like, no, I mean, that really wouldn't benefit you, in the way that you think it might, because unfortunately there's like, as much as I would love for people to sort of like mostly consume or focus on my content where I'm trying to put them onto some stuff that they never heard of before, sadly, like a lot of the focus on my content is more toward the artists and albums that most people are aware of. And even when people are trying out some of that smaller stuff, I mean, sometimes people take my opinion a little bit to heart and they don't necessarily kind of like, go out of their way to sort of try or explore certain things for themselves, and so if I am going to review a smaller act or artist or project, I definitely want it to be something that I'm personally excited about and I feel like is something the audience should spend some time trying out. But I mean, I try to be as reachable as I can through, again, social media, through email and so on and so forth, even if I can't hear everything, if I can't hear it all.
Right. And then I guess what's it like not from a smaller artist, then someone as big as Drake, getting upset with just your opinion, you know what I mean? And having as big of a moment as that. What was that like? I kind of, as even a Drake fan, I gotta say that it was good troll. Once I realized, I was like, once I saw the recipe, I was like, dang, that was good. That was good.
It just is what it is. I mean, artists are just people at the end of the day. Right. And honestly, there's like not really a whole lot, like as much as we would like to imagine it to be the case, and there are very good about how they handle themselves and present themselves on the internet. There's not really a whole lot that separates your average artist from a music fan who just gets like really passionate about their opinions on social media. You know what I mean? It's just that some people are smart enough to know and to understand that like showing the internet that side of themselves isn't going to benefit them. You know what I mean? We're all of us, we all, no matter how experienced or whatever we are, we all find ourselves in moments where we're angry about something that we've read online, or we're pissed off or upset about something somebody told us about us or whatever on Twitter or whatnot, but the thing is like what's important is that you just kind of realize like there's some stuff on the internet that's like worth sharing and worth saying, and there's some stuff that's like not, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like no matter how much something somebody says pisses me off, unless I could turn it into a discussion, like that actually like means something to anybody outside of just me being pissed, unless I can turn it into a discussion or make a point or shift it into something that actually sort of like benefits people in some way, shape, or form, there's no real reason in sort of like engaging or melting down or whatever. It's probably better to just kind of like go about your day and just try to figure out something constructive to do instead.
No, well said for sure.
Transitioning a little bit, let's talk about your favorite group, Brockhampton.
Sure.
He said sure. So starting it early on, that was one of like the first groups that you really like introduced the world to, but then also were kind of intertwined to within your show. They were like a reoccurring guest, a reoccurring group, but then also they were putting out music so consistently. Can you speak on like that time of when they were around and how important that was for the show?
My show or them, or like, what do you mean?
I guess both. You guys really did work hand in hand.
I had like Tony Fantano. I mean,
it's funny that's like the perception, because the thing is like, and I understand why it would be, because obviously like there's definitely like a simultaneous sort of like, there's like a symbiosis there to some extent. In the same way that some people perceive there to be on some level with like other things that I promote really heavily and simultaneously sort of seem to kind of like take off or get really popular at the same time that I'm like endorsing them, or sort of like just saying, hey, this is cool, this is worth your time, you need to check this out. And there are artists and examples of records that came out long before that people have kind of viewed in a similar way. Like for a little bit that was like Death Grips, like this as I'm sure like a lot of people know and are aware of who are watching this interview. I don't know how much you guys are kind of aware of their work, but there have been a lot of artists over the years that I've reviewed that like I've either blown up or I'm perceived to have something to do with their blow up, or maybe they've gotten like signed immediately after I reviewed them positively. Like it happens, but the thing is like there wasn't really anything in terms of what I was doing and what they were doing that was like planned or engineered in any way, you know what I mean? Like outside of the couple of interviews that I've done with either Brockhampton and Kevin Abstract, there hasn't really been sort of like a whole lot of contact between us. It was just, and I feel like that was definitely sort of like as much as I feel like we just like with a lot of artists, we sort of like mutually appreciate what one another does. Like I appreciate what they do and they appreciate what I do. I feel like we mutually sort of like understand that like we wouldn't be able to appreciate what one another does in the way that we do if we were like friends. You know what I mean? Like the thing is, if I know you on a level that's so intimate, I kind of like understand everything going on with you personally in your music. I'm not going to get the same thing out of it that I would as sort of like an outsider who all of this stuff is like kind of new to me. And the thing is like, if you become so close to me that we're like buddy and we sort of like have this intimate kind of like working relationship, you can't then expect me to sort of like give an honest assessment of your work. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like every review that I've ever done of anything that they've done has come from like a real place, be that like the original Saturation records, or how things like kind of fell off for the Iridescence and then kind of bounced back in sort of that emotional way with, Ginger immediately after. And then obviously like, kind of tumbling to the very unfortunate end that I think things met with like the last couple of records, that it sort of seems like they pushed those out to sort of like get their whole deal done and everything. So, I think, while it was cool to be able to kind of like have that sort of moment where things were like working in tandem and they were putting out some really great stuff that I think was groundbreaking and super, and is proving to be like influential. It was like a really cool moment in time. Simultaneously, I feel like things hit a bit of a wall with them, unfortunately. And, I feel like that's kind of the nature of like just running a really big group, like very, very few groups of that size in any genre tend to last for very long, because you're just working with so many like different moving parts that it's like difficult to kind of keep it all going in the same way. I'm glad it happened, and it's really exciting, and it's awesome to, have met them and have, celebrated their music when it was like, really awesome and sort of at its peak. And I definitely look back on all that stuff with like a lot of, it most definitely still holds up in my opinion. It sort of came and went, and I guess at this point we're all kind of sitting here trying to see where it goes. Kevin's doing his thing, Joba's doing his thing, and that record wasn't quite where I was hoping it was going to be when it dropped. Matt Champion has been doing some really interesting genre fusion stuff with his latest work, and Merlin drops a single here and there. I'm sort of wondering where that's going to go. Dom has had some stuff out that I was kind of mixed on. It's just, I guess, we're just going to see where it goes from here.
Totally agreed. And piggybacking off it a little bit, and I know it's not your favorite, but we did have a conversation with Amir about a few months ago, and even hearing his growth in the past few years and his music was really, really fun to hear. The radio station every so often, correct?
NTS was like a 6-month thing. We were doing that for like half the year just to kind of see how that went, and it was really fun. I may go and collaborate with them some more, but I'm sort of focusing on some other projects at the moment. Maybe like a live sort of like show festival bill or something, where we pull together some artists who I'm big on. We've been kind of building out the news site lately, and hoping to sort of bring some of the people who've been writing there in on like some editorial content, where they're also recommending stuff and trying to put on acts or projects that they're really excited about. Because again, I feel like unfortunately a lot of music journalism is just kind of being hollowed out right now, and I think I would like to sort of like create more opportunities for other people to sort of talk about stuff that they're excited about that I wouldn't necessarily have stumbled across, just like on my own. There's a lot of people out there who are aware of a wide world of music that either is just stuff that I'm not catching, or is like stuff that I maybe even wouldn't necessarily be able to speak to as well as somebody who's like more ingrained in the genre, or the genre that they're talking about, or just like has more of a familiarity with the particular artist that they're looking to sort of like push. Part of what was exciting about this for me when I started was just kind of like championing artists and records that I feel like we're not getting the positive push that they deserved. And it's I feel like if there's going to be any merit to music journalism and reviewing and whatever you want to call what I do going forward, it's going to be through that. It was just like a little over a decade ago when I first reviewed Kendrick Lamar Section 80, and it was one of my favorite albums of the year. And around that time when that album came out, I mean, yeah, you know, sure, like it definitely got some buzz, but like still nobody knew the fuck Kendrick Lamar was. And, you know, for the most part, and had no reason to, you know, sort of like see him as like the guy, you know, and even Drake at that point was, you know, making his way as well. You know, all of these artists who eventually become like the giants of our time all have to start somewhere.
Right.
And if it wasn't for, you know, the passionate music fans and, you know, people who are just sort of looking out for this sort of stuff on the internet, wherever and however they stumble across it, you know, these people wouldn't be where they are today. So, you know, I feel like we need to continue to incentivize, even if the algorithm sort of like push us not to. I feel like we need to find ways culturally to sort of like incentivize people to dig a little bit deeper beyond like what's just kind of being shoved down their throats through Spotify recommendations or like, you know, really basic kind of playlists and that sort of thing.
So to kind of end out, you talked about the live show. Is there anything else we could kind of speak on with that?
You know, it would just basically be like, we're not sure. It's probably going to be in New York. We're not sure who's going to be on it yet, but you know, just the idea would be to just put a couple of stages together, you know, and just do like a really simple kind of like one day kind of lineup kind of thing, you know, nothing too crazy or, you know, whatever. That's sort of what we're eventually shooting for, you know, just like some acts and artists that I know that I and simultaneously my audience are both kind of like passionate about, and just see like, you know, how far we can go trying that out.
And for the future of the YouTube channel, you can you speak on kind of what you plan on doing with that? Is it going to be you, or are you going to continue to bring on your other hosts to continue to have their outputs? What's your thoughts on that, and what are you planning on doing there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like there's not going to be any sort of like super huge major changes in the immediate future. I do want to continue incorporating different voices and perspectives from people in the music reviewing space as I see them kind of like pop up and I see other people doing cool stuff, you know, because, you know, again, I feel like it's important to remind people that like there are other perspectives and opinions out there, and you know, it's like my opinions are not gospel, and you know, other points of view are just as valid or can be just as valid as well. And you know, again, I mean, often when I am bringing on other people, it's also an opportunity to kind of push them to review something that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise, or that I know that they're going to bring a different perspective to it than I would if I reviewed it. So, I mean, that's usually what I'm trying to achieve when I have like a guest on, which, you know, again, I'm going to continue peppering in here and there in the following year.
Sweet. All right. Well, we talked about the live show. We talked about the YouTube channel. Is there anything else kind of wrapping up that you want to let the people know about?
I think that's it for right now. I mean, I guess we'll kind of see, like, I have been doing a lot of short form content over the past couple of years. I guess we are going to see where that goes if the TikTok thing gets banned. Because obviously that they just kind of upheld that decision in court. And while it is true that like Instagram and YouTube have been like gearing a lot of their platform towards short form content and vertical stuff, I feel like TikTok has been a lot of the reason they've been focusing on that in the first place. And if that competition goes, will that be something that they push as hard or sort of like focuses on as much? I guess we're going to see. Or will TikTok end up getting sold to somebody? Or will somebody in the wake of TikTok getting banned come up with some kind of like TikTok ripoff to sort of like replace it? Who the hell knows? You know, I mean, I guess like I feel like as long as that's up in the air, like the amount of focus that we give on that format into the future will also be kind of up in the air. But outside of that, I guess just expect more reviews, expect more website updates, expect more industry commentary, expect more New Music Friday streams, expect more interviews, expect more all the stuff that I'm doing month to month.
Sweet. And to wrap up, one final question. You had to listen to one album on repeat for a week straight, no stops. Dave Blunt's, Net Spend, or MGK and Trippie Redd?
What was the first option again?
Dave Blunts.
I guess I would go with the net spend. Yeah.
Net spend.
Net spend.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
Anthony Fantano, internet's biggest music nerd. Round 2 magazine. Let's go.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Bye.
I told that nigga pay me direct, my guy, and look what I did. Look what I did.